How are you? Nice gentleman?
I'm pretty tired. It's been recording so much, you know.
You're tired now?
Yeah, I haven't had a sleep in about all night. Take a rest. I'm sorry, it's still on here.
Everyone's suddenly talking about Jimi Hendrix again, but not for the reason you think. You've probably heard the same story 100 times. Hendrix was a rock god, a guitar genius, who died young and tragically. But what if I told you that version leaves out the most important parts? The dark turns, the buried secrets, and the untold legacy that's exploding back into the spotlight in 2025.
And there's another great thing. I think kids should hear this one too. Hendrix, everybody knows, especially young people, they know him as this drug addict kind of guy. But there's an interview where Hendrix says, I know now. He said, I used to think that I was built to take all these drugs, that I was made to do this. And he said, I know now that I've taken entirely too many drugs.
Hendrix wasn't just ahead of his time, he was trapped by it. And now, decades later, the truth is finally surfacing. In this video, I'm breaking down the real story behind Jimi Hendrix, his rise, his unraveling, and why the world is finally ready to hear what really happened. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you won't hear his music the same way ever again.
You're considered one of the best guitar players in the world.
No. How about one of the best sitting in this chair? How about
Yeah.
You know, whenever I feel down or depressed or whatever, you know, I just go on and play. And I can't practice those. It's always constantly, what do you call it, like a jam, you know. It's hard for me to remember any notes because I'm constantly trying to create other things. That's why I make a lot of mistakes.
Do you read music?
No,
They say legends never die, but sometimes they get buried under decades of silence. Until something so unexpected happens, the world can't help but look back. That's exactly what happened when, over 50 years after his death, Jimi Hendrix suddenly took center stage again. Not for a new album or lost recording, but for a reason nobody saw coming. On March 18, 2025, in the marble halls of the Washington state capitol, Jimi Hendrix, once arrested, rejected, and dismissed, was finally honored with the Medal of Merit. This isn't just any plaque or posthumous thank you. It's the highest award a civilian can receive in the state, and it wasn't handed out quietly. Politicians, journalists, fans, and even Hendrix's family stood in awe as the ceremony unfolded. The man once labeled a problem child, a dropout, a wild card, was now being called one of the greatest cultural figures to ever emerge from Washington. But here's where it gets interesting. At that very moment, something else was happening. In cities across America, stages were lighting up again, not with today's pop stars, but with Jimi Hendrix's sound. The timing wasn't a coincidence. It was a signal. The award ceremony didn't just celebrate Hendrix's past, it lit a fuse. And what it triggered next? You won't believe how big it actually got. What if I told you a tour built around a man who's been gone for over 5 decades just sparked a musical event so powerful, one of Hendrix's own heroes came out of retirement for it? It sounds impossible, but it just happened. And it's sending shockwaves through the music world. After a 5-year hiatus caused by the pandemic, the Experience Hendrix tour roared back to life in 2025. But this wasn't some nostalgia trip. It was a full-force resurrection. Imagine the biggest names in blues and rock: Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Zakk Wylde, Eric Johnson, Samantha Fish, all hitting the road together, not to promote themselves, but to honor the legacy of one man, Hendrix. But it gets crazier. The final show, set for April 12th at the Fox Theater in Atlanta, has a guest so unexpected it almost broke the internet. Blues icon Buddy Guy, 88 years old, officially retired, announced he would return to the stage for one night only. Why? To honor Hendrix. Because Hendrix once called him an influence. Let that sink in. Buddy Guy, the man who shaped Hendrix's own guitar style, now stepping out of the shadows to salute his student. A full-circle moment no one saw coming. And here's the twist. This isn't just about music. This is about legacy, torch passing, resurrection. Stick with me, because what led to this moment stretches back to Hendrix's very first heartbreak. Before the fame, before the fire, before the guitar set the world ablaze, there was a boy, a quiet, shy kid from Seattle, born into chaos so deep, it's a miracle he survived it all. Jimi Hendrix's story doesn't start with music. It starts with trauma, and what happened in his first 15 years could have destroyed anyone else. Born in 1942, Jimi entered a world already falling apart. His father, Al, was stationed in Alabama and denied leave for Jimi's birth. His mother, Lucille, was just 17, emotionally unstable, trapped in poverty, and drowning in alcohol. The home was filled with violence and neglect. 4 of Jimi's siblings were taken by the state. He too was shuffled around, even sent to live with strangers in California. And then came the moment that could have broken him for good. In 1958, Jimmy's mother died of liver disease. He was only 15. He didn't even get to say goodbye. But here's the part that stings. His father refused to let him attend the funeral. Instead, he handed Jimmy and his younger brother glasses of whiskey and said, "This is how men deal with loss." That's the kind of silence Jimmy was raised in. The kind that doesn't allow grief, doesn't allow emotion, just pain, swallowed, whole. But even then, a spark was already flickering, because in that same year, Jimmy picked up a guitar for the very first time. And what started as a broken ukulele with one string would soon become the lifeline that pulled him out of the wreckage. Hold on to that moment, because the sound he created next didn't just come from talent. It came from surviving a war no one saw. He didn't enlist out of patriotism. He enlisted to escape a jail cell. In 1961, 19-year-old Jimi Hendrix was arrested for riding in a stolen car. With no money, no steady job, and no clear future, the judge gave him two options: do time or do time in the military. Hendrix chose the 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles, known for jumping into hell during D-Day. It wasn't the kind of discipline he wanted, but it was the only way out. And here's where it gets interesting. While Jimmy hated the structure of Army life, he wrote letters home complaining about the rules, the drills, the constant pressure. There was one thing that kept him alive: his Red Dane electro guitar, which he named Betty Jean. While others trained to shoot, Jimmy played. While others slept, he strummed. He played until his fingers bled. And in that unlikely place, he met someone who would shape his future forever: Billy Cox, a fellow soldier, a bass player, and the first real musical partner Hendrix ever had. Together, they formed a band called the King Casuals, performing at local clubs even while still in uniform. They weren't just killing time. They were building the foundation of what would become one of the most iconic sounds in rock history. But listen to this. After just 13 months, Hendrix was discharged from the army. The official reason? An ankle injury during a parachute jump. The real reason? Sleeping on duty, skipping inspections, and rumors, damaging at the time, that he didn't fit the military mold in more ways than one. Still, the army was behind him. And the road ahead? That's when the real battle began. Imagine being the most electric guitarist of your generation, and nobody knows your name. That was Jimi Hendrix in the early 1960s, wandering through the gritty, unforgiving world of the Chitlin circuit. A trail of rundown clubs and smoky bars where black artists could perform safely during segregation. The pay was terrible, the travel was brutal, and the recognition? Non-existent. But Hendrix kept playing. He was a hired gun, backing artists like Little Richard, the Isley Brothers, and Curtis Knight. Night after night, he stood in the background, watching crowds scream for someone else. He was told what to play, when to solo, what to wear. Flashy moves like playing with his teeth or behind his back got him scolded for stealing the spotlight. But here's where it gets crazier. In private, Hendrix was evolving. He was experimenting with new techniques, flipping a right-handed guitar to suit his left-handed style, using distortion, feedback, chaos. He wasn't trying to play like anyone else. He was chasing a sound no one had heard before. But no matter how innovative he got, the industry kept him in a box. Then came the turning point. In 1964, fed up with being a sideman, Hendrix packed his few belongings and moved into the Hotel Teresa in Harlem. He met a woman named Faye Pridgeon who believed in him, really believed, and gave him shelter and encouragement. Around that same time, he entered amateur night at the Apollo Theater and won. That one victory was small, but it proved something. Jimmy didn't belong in the shadows. He was born for center stage, and what he did next? It would ignite a fuse that changed music history forever. He wasn't even using his real name. He was Jimmy James, just another unknown guitarist in Greenwich Village, playing dive bars for cash. The venue was Café Wah. The date was summer 1966, and Hendrix had no idea he was about to walk straight into fate, because sitting in that tiny crowd was Chaz Chandler, former bassist of the Animals, who was looking for new talent to manage. And what he saw on stage? It stopped him cold. Hendrix didn't just play the guitar, he attacked it, loved it, made it scream. Chandler had seen legends, but this was something else, a force. Within minutes he knew, this wasn't a backup player, this was the future. So he made Hendrix an offer that would change everything. Come to London, start over, go big. But listen to this. Hendrix had almost nothing, just a guitar, a few clothes, and $40 borrowed dollars in his pocket. But he said yes. And 12 days after landing in London, 12 days, he had a new band, a new name, and a shot at immortality. The Jimi Hendrix Experience was born on October 6, 1966. Chandler brought in Noel Redding on bass and Mitch Mitchell on drums. And just like that, a power trio formed that would tear through the British music scene like a hurricane. Here's the twist. Less than a month later, they were already recording Hey Joe. Within weeks, they were performing for crowds that included Paul McCartney, Mick Jagger, Jeff Beck. Hendrix had gone from sleeping in cars to being the most talked about musician in London in just 2 months. But he hadn't even hit America yet. And what he did next? That's when the world really stopped and watched. By June 1967, Hendrix had conquered London, but in America, he was still a ghost. Unknown, untested, unbelieved. That all changed at the Monterey Pop Festival. Hendrix knew this was his shot, his only shot to break through to his home country. But there was a problem. The Who had just performed, and not just performed, they had demolished the stage, smashing guitars and amps into dust. Hendrix was up next. So how do you follow that? Here's where it gets wild. Jimi walked on stage holding lighter fluid. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't ask permission. But in the final moments of his set, after shredding through Wild Thing, he knelt in front of his guitar, poured the liquid over it like it was a sacrifice, and whispered into the mic, "I'm going to sacrifice something I love." Then, he lit it. Flames exploded off the Stratocaster. He smashed it to pieces. And in that moment, 100,000 people didn't just witness a concert, they witnessed a birth. But hold that image, because it changed everything. Photographer Ed Kareff captured it. Jimi on his knees, hair wild, flames rising. That photo became the symbol of rock rebellion. Critics called it madness, some called it genius, but no one could ignore it. America finally woke up. Music writer Robert Christgau said Hendrix introduced a guitar style so powerful that no one has matched it since. And from that moment forward, Jimi Hendrix wasn't a backup player anymore. He was a force of nature. You've heard Purple Haze, you've heard Voodoo Child, but have you ever wondered why they sound like that? Like dreams you can't explain? Like chaos that somehow makes perfect sense? The answer, as wild as it sounds, is this. Hendrix wasn't just writing songs. He was trying to map the inside of his own mind, and he wasn't doing it alone. Because, in 1966, everything changed when Jimi took LSD for the first time. From that moment on, he didn't see the guitar as just an instrument. It became a portal. He claimed he saw visions, sounds in color, feelings as shapes. And while most people couldn't understand what he meant, when he played, it clicked. The music made sense in ways words never could, and that was just the beginning. But it gets crazier. LSD became his gateway, but so did marijuana, hashish, amphetamines, cocaine. He was never sober on stage again. That chaos you hear in his solos, that otherworldly energy, it wasn't by accident. It was a mirror of what was going on inside his head. Tracks like 1983, A Merman I Should Turn to Be, don't just sound psychedelic. They are psychedelia in its rawest, most unfiltered form. And yet, behind the mind-expanding melodies, was something darker. Because Jimi wasn't just chasing sound, he was escaping something. He said his visions were too big for this world, and the more he chased them, the more disconnected from reality he became. Don't scroll yet, because that disconnect would soon come at a cost, a dangerous cost, and the crash was already on its way. He was the voice of a generation, the symbol of freedom, rebellion, and artistic genius. But when the stage lights dimmed and the crowd stopped cheering, Jimi Hendrix wasn't the legend people worshipped. He was a man unraveling. The public knew about the acid trips, the rumors of wild parties and haze-filled studios. But what most people didn't see, what his inner circle feared the most, was the bottle. Because alcohol changed him. Hendrix, who was calm, thoughtful, and poetic when sober, became angry and unpredictable when drunk. Friends say he could switch in a second, from laughing to lashing out, from gentle to violent. And it wasn't just a personality shift, it was dangerous. But here's where things took a dark turn. In one chilling moment in the late 60s, during a drunken argument, Hendrix struck his girlfriend Carmen Barrero with a vodka bottle. The fur, cut above her eye, needed stitches. And that wasn't a one-time incident. As his fame exploded, so did the incidents. Fights on tour, arrests, outbursts. His team did what they could to hide it, but the cracks were widening. Even his first big paycheck in 1962, $400, was gone in a single night of binge drinking. He once admitted people told him he got foolish when he drank, but it was more than foolish. It was self-destruction, and it was building to something worse. Because by the end of the decade, Jimi wasn't just battling expectations or drug habits, he was battling himself. And the real tragedy? No one around him knew how close he was to the edge. Hold that thought, because in just 1 year, that edge would become a cliff. It was supposed to be a quiet night, just wine, sleep, and some time with his girlfriend. But by morning, Jimi Hendrix, the man who changed music forever, was gone. And what happened in those final hours has haunted fans, investigators, and conspiracy theorists for over 50 years. September 18th, 1970. London. Jimi had been sick, exhausted, burned out from endless touring, bad management, and a deepening mistrust of everyone around him. He'd left his new studio behind in New York, Electric Lady, before it was even finished. He never saw it again. That night, he took 9 Visparax sleeping pills, 18 times the recommended dose, a drug so powerful it was later banned. He lay down beside his girlfriend, Monica Danneman, and never woke up. But here's the twist. Monica later claimed she was with him the entire night, but when paramedics arrived, she wasn't there. The gas fire was on, the door was open, and Hendrix was lying alone, covered in black vomit, his airways completely blocked. And it gets darker. The surgeon who tried to revive him said red wine came pouring out of his lungs and stomach, like he had drowned in it. But toxicology reports showed almost no alcohol in his system. Scotland Yard reopened the case decades later, but they couldn't explain it either. No clear answers, just a legend, gone at 27, joining the cursed 27 Club alongside Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, and, years later, Kurt Cobain and Amy Winehouse. But here's why that matters now. In 2025, the world didn't just remember Jimi Hendrix. It finally recognized him as a visionary, a revolutionary, and a soul who gave us everything until there was nothing left. And that legacy, it's burning brighter than ever.